Okay, well, I'm here on with the great Chris Van Vliet. How you doing today, boss?
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
And clearly the most handsome guest in this conversation, at least so far. You actually look clean.
I actually decided to shower today. I knew it was a special occasion. I knew we'd be looking at each other here on video, which is crazy that we live in a world where we can be across, the world from each other and looking at each other. It's amazing.
And of course, I came across, I first discovered Chris because he's got this very small upcoming YouTube channel with the mere pathetic 65 million views and counting. So, Chris, which of course, the reason why I found it is you've got a whole bunch of wrestling guests on. So talk to me about wrestling interviews, and do you ever find them to be sort of stressful in a way?
I mean, I'm a fan just like you, just like anyone else that's listening to this or watching this. So for me, it all started out. I mean, my day job is I'm an entertainment reporter. I host a TV show here in Miami where I live. I've been super fortunate to be able to chase my dream and be a broadcaster for the past 15 years. But as a wrestling fan, we'd always have the opportunity to interview wrestlers whenever they came to our town to promote Raw, SmackDown, or if Impact was in town or whatever. And I would do these interviews to promote the show. We'd air 10, 15, 20 seconds of it on TV. And then I had 10, 15, 20 minutes of an interview that nobody got to see. So I figured, well, if I'm a fan and I enjoy what we're talking about here and I like the answers, I'm just going to put it up on a YouTube channel and hope that someone else sees it. And it kind of very, very slowly grew from there when I started this 8 years ago. And now I just try to go out and do as many of these interviews as I can. Number one, because I'm a fan, but number two, because I'm trying to, learn something every time I do one of these interviews. And I've been super fortunate that I've done some relatively big interviews in the last couple of years.
What's it like for you when you're doing an interview and you could tell that this isn't going well, or I'm not getting the stuff that I need from them? I mean, and name names if you want.
And that's just kind of innate in just human interaction. Sometimes things don't go the way that you want them to go. And it's funny, you'll write out questions, you'll be like, oh, if I ask this question, it's going to elicit this response. And that's unfortunately not always the case. So I try to hit them with something good right off the bat, whether it's on camera or not, and just kind of warm up to them, let them know that I'm on the same level as them. I'm not digging for dirt. I'm not trying to, pull one over on them. I'm just trying to have a conversation with them and whatever comes out of that. But an interview of mine that a lot of people point to that is interesting or strange or awkward is the interview I did with Evan Bourne, Matt Seidel. And if you watch this, and if you haven't watched it, enjoy it. Halfway through the interview, he just starts rubbing his face like this and giving me these strange answers, and I'm like, "Are you Matt? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. What are you talking about?" He just keeps doing that. So, in those situations, we just kind of ended it maybe a little bit sooner than it would have normally gone on.
But the big interview that I seen, which was great, was with Chris Jericho. But do you find it strange that Jericho is like he's probably at the minute the biggest name in wrestling, but he's so fucking down to earth? Like, do you think that's sincere, or do you think he's just generally a great fella?
Oh no, that's him. That's Chris, and he owes me absolutely nothing. He doesn't need to do these interviews with me at all. He doesn't need to do any interviews. Period. He has his own outlet with Talk is Jericho, and he can just do that for the rest of his life. But we have a mutual friend who connected us and suggested that that Jericho does an interview with me, and we did it, and it was great. And the first interview we did was on his tour bus about a year-ish ago. He was about to do an autograph signing for Fozzy. I drove 3.5 hours from where I live to meet him at 9 in the morning, which meant I left my house at 5:30 a.m. to drive up to do this interview with him. And he goes, "How much time do you want to, how long do you want to do this interview?" And I said, 15, 20 minutes. He's like, "Okay, sounds great." When we wrapped it up at the 20-minute mark, I, shook his hand, thanked him so much. I said, "All right, well, we'll see you around. We'll be in touch." He's like, "Oh, well, are you in a rush to get out of here?" I said, "No." He goes, "Oh, well, I'm about to get breakfast. Why don't you just hang out? We'll just chat." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm on Chris Jericho's tour bus while he's eating breakfast, and I'm just hanging out with him like I'm his buddy." So the interview that you're talking about is the interview a lot of people have actually referenced. The one I did in the backseat of his car. It was a couple days after he signed with AEW, and I just texted him. I said, "I see you have a live podcast in Ocala, Florida, which is a 4-hour drive from where I live." I said, "If you're willing to make the time to do an interview, I'll gladly drive up there." He's like, "Yeah, for sure, man. I'd love to. It's always great talking to you." So I drove 4 hours up. On the way back, I knew it was a timely interview because it was one of the, I think it was the first interview he did since signing with AEW. I was editing the interview in my car. I stopped at like a gas station to plug in my laptop because it died. And then the second I got home, I uploaded it on YouTube. Like, I'm hustling to make this stuff happen.
But but it's so true about Jericho because I've actually met him. And the thing that was so crazy was that he was literally walking down the street here in Belfast by this chicken restaurant, and I'm looking at him like no, that is Chris,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Hey, how are you?" And we had this like what, a minute and a half, 2 minute conversation about Aerosmith right in the middle of the street. And then when he
Wow.
walked off, I was like, that just happened. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm stone cold sober. I spoke to Chris Jericho about Aerosmith.
And that's just the guy he is. And I think that Jericho gets that he's a big star, and he understands that a quick interaction, a high five, an autograph, a photo, a conversation like the one you're describing is something that someone's going to remember for the rest of their life.
And I gotta ask you this because I ask you because I do it myself when I'm interviewing people because I've started putting up highlights on YouTube. Do you ever deliberately ask them clickbait questions?
I don't ever deliberately ask them. I think I go into it and then I find what the most topical thing is after the interviews happen. I mean, I'm doing 15, 20, 30, sometimes 45-minute interviews, and I'm not going into them trying to trick anybody. I'm going into them to have a conversation. Obviously, there's a list of topics that I want to talk about, but I never want the person to leave the conversation going, "Man, that felt uncomfortable," or "Chris really screwed me over," or "He was really trying to set me up." I just want to have a conversation, and I want to continue to have a good reputation, not just for the people I'm interviewing, which is super important, but for the people who are watching this. People are subscribed to my channel. They're subscribing to me, and like I feel like there's an onus on me to them to continue to be respectful and continue to put out great interviews.
Yeah, the thing I love though when interviewing people because it's just the name drop. When I interviewed Bruce Pritchard, I asked him some stuff about The Rock versus Shawn Michaels because they've infamously had the real life issues backstage.
Yeah.
But Pritchard was saying, "Oh, he goes, oh no, none of that ever happened, never happened." It's like, but you spoke about this in a shoot interview and I'm thinking, I know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it
yeah.
did happen, and because Mark Henry spoke about it when I met Shawn Michaels, he mentioned a little bit of it, and it's like, Bruce, you're a fucking liar, but you know.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people say things in one interview, realize they got some heat from it, and they're like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I don't know why I said that. I'm never going to talk about that again."
Do you ever find that, of course, your YouTube channel is really big right now, but do you ever find it to be incredibly stressful dealing with their constantly changing rules and algorithms and stuff?
I mean, I've been fortunate that I've got a built-in audience with my subscribers, and I'm also fortunate that a lot of my interviews get picked up by the wrestling websites or the dirt sheets. But with Instagram, especially, the rules and the algorithms change all the time, YouTube as well. And unless you have that built-in audience, who knows how it works? All you can control is what you can control. In fact, John Cena said that to me in an interview, and it really stuck with me. He said, "Control the controllable." If you don't know how the YouTube algorithm works and you don't know why this interview, which you thought was good, or this upload that you thought was good, isn't doing as well as it should, there's nothing you can do. Worrying about it's not going to make it better. Worrying about it's not going to, get you more views. All you can do is all you can do.
Because I've started working with Conan and Disco Inferno. I added for their YouTube channel, and it's we started it in October, but it's only from March that it's done really well. And we just passed like 1 million views in a month.
It's great.
And it drives me insane because it's like, where were they all at the start? Like, and now trying to get it monetized, it's driving me crazy. But that's YouTube for you.
And look, I think that everyone out there that's watching this or listening or just wants to be in YouTube or make YouTube a career, it's not like anyone can do it, absolutely, but it is an incredibly molasses slow process, and you just need to know that you got to put in that time, put in that effort, and appreciate the process as it's unfolding. And if you had 5,000 views last month, and now you've got 7,000 views. And then next month you'll get 10,000 views, and you'll just keep continuing on that trajectory. Just know that you're making progress. You're not just going to wake up tomorrow and have 5 million subscribers, and it's just going to happen like that. It's a super slow process.
Although I had a kind of a awkward / good thing happen to me where I interviewed this lady. I don't know if you know her name. She's mostly well known over here, but her name's Katie Hopkins, and she's quite basically a right-wing politician. And
Right.
my whole thing is not that I agree with her at all, but I like the fact that she speaks her mind. So I interviewed her and I put the video version up on YouTube, and it got me 2,000 subscribers in about 20 minutes. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, and
Wow.
half it's like I need to get her back on again, and then the other
Yeah.
half it's like she can get me shut down.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like thank you, but
But look, 2,000 subscribers even in a day is amazing. To get 2,000 subscribers in 20 minutes. Like I've had some big guests on my channel. Jericho. I just had recently had Tony Khan. I've had The Rock on there, Flair, Hogan. The list goes on. I've never had 2,000 subscribers in a day ever.
yeah. Well, you just mentioned Tony Khan there, and I've got to ask you this because Conan and Disc was always talking about it, but not to come across as like a negative fan, but do you think with AWE they're kind of pushing their luck a little bit? Like it's like too much so soon?
Well, the thing is, AEW hasn't done anything yet. And the fact that we're just so excited as fans, I think is exciting for the business in general. And Tony's aware of this. Tony Khan is aware of the fact that they've announced that they had a company on January 1st. They've had some press conferences. They put some stuff out on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, but they haven't done anything. They haven't had 1 second of a match, and they won't for another 22 days at this point. So I think that everything they have now is just hype. We're headed in the right direction. The fact that we're talking about them and we're excited about them. I can't think of another company who has not done anything and had this kind of excitement behind it. And Impact tried something 15 plus years ago. Wrestling Society X tried something, almost 2 decades ago. Lucha Underground had something, and I love Lucha Underground, but they didn't have this excitement 5 months out. So I think that whatever happens with AEW, we got to take it with a grain of salt. What happens on May 25th is not indicative of how the rest of the company is going to be for all time. They're going to have a show on May 25th. I hope as a wrestling fan that it's going to be a great show and an entertaining show and provides us with an alternative out there. But we can't go, this thing happened at Double or Nothing, which means their TV product's going to be like this and their next pay-per-view is going to be like this. And 5 years from now, it's also going to be like this. It's going to be one show. That would be like going Backlash sucked or Fastlane sucked. All of WWE is like that. No, week to week, it's going to be different.
Yeah, and I mean, Jericho's in it. As we mentioned earlier on, me and Jericho were the best of friends, so he'll be upset if I don't watch. But I gotta ask you, of course, I'm from the greatest country in the world, Ireland. You don't have to agree. We all know you
From
already.
Canada? Wow, it's the greatest country in the world. By the way, I love how you messaged me and said, you'll be able to understand my accent. I sound more like Liam Neeson than Conor McGregor. And I will say, I watched Conor's documentary, and I wish it had subtitles, because there were a lot of times when I didn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah, even I sometimes I'm like, what?
How far away did Conor grow up from where you grew up?
Probably about 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how many drinks you had before getting to start.
And the accent changes that much over 90 minutes.
Oh, it's demented. But do you want to know the key to doing a Liam Neeson impression?
What's that?
It's well, if you do Charlie Sheen or Johnny Carson, they speak a little bit like this.
Yes.
But then if you do it Irish, we go, I'd rather not speak a little bit like that.
Oh man, yeah.
But then you have to list three horrible things and then explain why you're here. You're like, I'm a bad man, Chris. I threw shit into the mouth of a nun. I called a baby a cunt. I grabbed a bride's tits at a wedding, but I'm the only one who can interview Chris Jericho, and you not.
I've interviewed Liam Neeson several times, and he speaks so like softly, and
Yeah.
it's like I was sitting 3 feet away from him, and I feel like I had to lean in to be like, "What's that? Huh?" I've interviewed him a bunch of times actually. I interviewed him for The Gray. I interviewed him, whatever his last. The one on the train. What was the movie where it was basically Taken, but he was on a train?
Oh yeah.
Non-stop. No, that was The Airplane.
Oh,
The
oh,
Commuter.
Yeah.
The Commuter.
The Commuter.
Oh, this one's on the train. And what?
I love the fact that Liam Neeson did a film called The Grey, while in the film looked like he was using Nutella for hair gel. But of course, as I was boasting earlier, I'm from Ireland, and in WWE, the top woman right now is Becky Lynch. Now, I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, and I don't know if you're into Avengers Endgame, but without giving any spoilers, Avengers Endgame and the latest Game of Thrones have both come under criticism for what they've called, what people are calling like forced feminism. And in WWE, there's a lot of fans that think that the women are being shoved down our throats before they're ready, which I personally don't agree with. But so the question I have for you is, do you think that sexism in wrestling is ever really going to go away?
Well, I think the WWE is trying to make a correction for the way that women's wrestling was 15, 20 years ago when we were having bra and panty matches and mud wrestling and all that kind of stuff. And I think they're trying to make the correction now. And it's almost like because all this has happened very quickly. The women's revolution, evolution, whatever you want to call it, has gotten to where we are right now just in the last maybe 2 years. And it all feels very quick. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like, why does it matter if we call a match a men's match or a women's match? Why can't we just call it a wrestling match? Like, why did we have to make a big deal that it was a women's match that was headlining WrestleMania? I think that's amazing. And it was a great match, one of the best matches on the card. Why can't we just say, this is the match? And I think we're going to get to that. I think that we're ticking off a bunch of boxes right now to get to that point where when a women's match main events the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or whatever in years to come, we just kind of go, yeah, of course, like, no big deal. And I think that's what we're heading towards right now.
But would you agree that also there's a thing in wrestling where while the women I do think are overly criticized, they at the same time are overly praised?
It's once again, I think it's just an overcorrection for the fact that the Give Divas a Chance movement that we had a couple of years ago, where women were not being given anything, being given 2-minute matches or whatever, 90-second matches. And I think that now they're just going, well, we didn't do that for so long that we're correcting for it now by doing that. And I think that if we were to have the same conversation in a year or 2 or 3, I think it would just be commonplace that women will be getting an equal amount of time as men, and we won't even think anything different of it.
Yeah, because I'm also a big fan of Impact Wrestling, and there was a match on there about, say, a month and a half ago. It was Tessa Blanchard versus Jordan Grace, and I don't know if you've seen it, but they beat the shit out of each other, and it was so stiff and so high impact. And I remember thinking, like, this is one of the best TV matches I've ever seen. So I went on Twitter to see what people were saying, and all it was a lot of guys going, "Who would you bang? Which one would you bang first? Did you see her ass?" And it's like, guy, it's a match. It's a match.
I think that UFC is doing a really good job of this. Like Dana White said years ago that we'll never have women fighting in UFC. And then obviously that shifted, and we had the uprise of Ronda Rousey and a lot of other stars there. And now we just look at a card and we don't look at a UFC card and go, oh, that's a men's match, that's a women's match. We just go, oh, that's going to be a good one. Whether it's men or women, we just kind of go, I can't wait to see that match.
And especially with the fact that Lesnar is now apparently retired once again. in UFC, the biggest fight in MMA is the Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg rematch. So women win again.
But we're not looking at that going, I can't believe the biggest match is a women's match. We just go, I can't wait to see that match.
Yeah. And then I always think, Jesus Christ, I'm so fat. But we've now come to the final two big questions, Chris. And these are the questions that could change it all. So there's right answers to these questions.
Wow. Okay.
So if you get them wrong, the YouTube, the career, the Liam Neeson impressions, they're all finished.
Oh no.
So here's the first question. Who is the better band, Queen or the Beatles?
Oh, wow. And there's a correct answer to this. The Beatles.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Queen.
Well, okay then. Well, it's I appreciate you having me on, Adam, and thank you.
But you can put it all back with this final question, but this is the big one. And this is the one that could actually change people's public opinions of you.
Wow.
The Spice Girls are back. Who is your favorite Spice Girl?
Oh. Okay, so I think this is an important distinction here. My favorite in 2019 or my favorite in 1999?
I'll give you both.
Okay, because in 1999 I was all in on Posh, and now I look at Posh and go, I don't know, is that the right choice? I'm just not so sure about that one. Plus, she doesn't even want to reunite with him, does she?
No, sadly.
Yeah. So let's see. I think Sporty Spice was my least favorite back then, and now Sporty Spice might be at the top now.
Sorry, there was the wrong answer on
Baby
both.
Spice was the correct answer.
Baby Spice is the
Oh,
number. If a woman looks like she enjoys a good sandwich, that's the one you pick. Well, hey, Chris, listen, I just want to. Oh, no, that's a whole separate podcast.
This is true.
Well, listen, Chris, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad that I didn't get your name wrong. That would have been rude and embarrassing. Your YouTube channel is class, and I'll plug all your links down below. And when I say down below, I meant in the podcast description.
I really appreciate you having me on. I think that you have a very endearing accent, and I understand everything you're saying.
Thanks very much. I try not to be so handsome next time. It's offensive to my people.
I'll try my best.